and Martin and Elijah and Kevin. Glad to have you. I'm Colonel Will Woodward. I'm the career field manager for the 15 Alpha career field. I've got three of my colleagues here. I will let them introduce themselves here in a minute, but you've got a total of 15 Alphas and a civilian equivalent 1515. And so between the four of us, we are interested to hopefully answer some questions before you've asked them about the 15 Alpha career field. And then we definitely want to give you the opportunity to ask us some questions. By showing up, unless you stumbled into this meeting, we assume this means you've got at least some interest in this career field as you do that AFSC matching thing. And we just want to paint the ops analysis career field not in the most favorable light, but in the most realistic light. It is a great career field to be in. So in that sense, I feel good about painting it in a good light, but mostly just want to empower you with information so that you can well articulate your preferences. And if you want to be a 15 Alpha and you meet the qualifications, we want you. And if you don't really want to be a 15 Alpha and you don't really meet the qualifications, there are lots of other things to do in the Air Force. So with that, let me turn it over to Ms. Rena Schutz to introduce yourself, and then we'll get into the rest of the material.
So good afternoon. My name is Irene Schutz, and I'm the Analytic Force Division Chief.
I'm Major Malupu Akanino, and I do recruiting and sessions, education and training for the 15 Alpha career field.
I am Captain Clarence Williams. I'm the data science team lead at Air Force Futures.
Yeah, so you got four of us here at the Pentagon. There are lots and lots of 15 Alpha positions at the Pentagon, but it is certainly not the only place you can spend your career. So we're going to turn on some slides and talk you through a little bit, and then again, absolutely interested in in taking your questions.
I don't know what happened to the time.
Yeah, it looks like a lost it, but we can bring it right back.
Oh, it had opened in the browser.
Yeah, did I lose Adobe? I lost Adobe. Okay, we'll just do it.
All right, let's do the browser.
We'll do it this way.
Oh, I was gonna say hit the button.
Share button, right? Yep.
Yep, that button.
All right, we are sharing.
Yep. And then you see the button with the two arrows in the PDF at the top. Two arrows. That one right there. There you go.
All right.
All right. We got a visual of operations analysis career field overview?
Yes, sir.
All right. Great. Okay. And apologies, I didn't put Ms. Schutz's name on this top slide, but those are the four that you've got here. Rena, we are glad to have you here, and it's actually we'll get into this in a little bit. It's a good representation or data point that the civilian equivalents to 15 Alpha officers are a significant portion. In fact, they outnumber the officers in the overall analytic community. All right, Clarence, take us to the next one. All right, so let's cage this career field or specialty within the Air Force as a whole. The teen series of AFSCs is broadly operations, and then on the right hand side you see the different flavors of that. Pilots are 11s, combat systems officer, navigators are 12s, and so on down the line. And highlighted clearly is 15 Alpha operations analysis. 15 Ws, a different career field. That's the weather officer. so that all three digits matter. The first digit, 1, tells you it's in operations, and then the second and third get into that the specific career field. The cloud red-blue graphic that you see at the bottom are all of the career fields, some of which are teen series, some of which are not, in the information warfare developmental category. So these are all the career fields that compete together for promotion from a human resource management, talent management standpoint. And the reason why they compete together for promotion is because while we are doing different things and using different methodologies, it's all information focused, and there are opportunities. In fact, as the Air Force is right now is looking at more ways, better ways for integration within this idea of information warfare, which goes back to Sun Tzu or before. Information warfare is not new, but never before has warfare and militaries, American and our potential adversaries, had so much data overwhelming us at our fingertips. The increasing digital, computerized, artificial intelligence enabled force and conflict of the 21st century and beyond mean that officers, individuals who understand how to interpret, use, analyze, digest information are critical. And 15 alphas are a big part of that. I guess one other thing that I want to highlight in that information warfare graphic is on the far right in the red side, you see 14N, which is intelligence. And one way, not the only way, but one way to think about what an operations analyst does is for the good guys, for the blue side, what intelligence does for the adversary. So an intelligence analyst's job is to, as best as possible, understand and communicate about what the adversary's intentions and capabilities are. A 15 alpha holds a mirror up to our own forces, our own capabilities, and lets the force know, lets commanders, other decision makers know, this is what we have accomplished, this is what we are capable of doing, and we use data and advanced analytics to do that, holding up a mirror to look at ourselves. So that's to put the career field in the broad context of all Air Force specialties. Let's go forward, and the next thing we want to do is show you a little bit of bells and whistles video to put some music to that story. This video was created by Air Mobility Command's analysis shop, their A9, which is the analysis office at every command. All right. Was that a day in the life of an operations analyst? A little bit. Lots of computer screens, lots of graphical visualizations of data. How many ops analysts are actually standing in the back of a C-17? On a daily basis, not so many. This is more of a career field for sure that sits in offices and types on computer keyboards. But increasingly, I think it is fair to say this is a career field that is close to and touches the operational edge. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Major Acanino to talk a few more details about the kinds of jobs that 15 Alphas hold, the sort of techniques that we use, some of the training available to a 15 Alpha, and then we'll get into your questions. So, Upu, over to you.
Thank you, sir. So I'm probably going to go through these slides a little quickly to make sure we have time at the end for questions. And of course, we can always come back if you guys want to look at a particular slide. So here we can see the different types of analyses that we're talking about. I've had questions of like, hey, what is the lieutenant going to be doing? So obviously, if you go to Air Mobility Command, you'll be doing some of the stuff you saw in that video. But otherwise, ideally, you're going to be doing some sort of operations, doing an analysis there. And so here we have the different types of things in the top left corner, supporting air operations, supporting some deployments if you go and deploy, supporting some of those combatant commands. In the top right, I've personally done some work in the intelligence community, supporting space operations there. In the bottom left, your first assignment may be doing tests and evaluation in Florida. You may be going to a research lab, so doing some research and development. And the bottom right, you may be going to Texas to support some personnel manpower, or maybe you want to go and teach, doing some education and training there. But regardless, you're going to be supporting operations or education in all of these different fields, solving some of those problems, bringing that decision advantage to the fight, answering the questions of the commanders who maybe have a gut instinct, but you bring the data to the fight to help sharpen their understanding, so that they're not just going off of that gut instinct. They have data to support it, or your data shows, hey, sir or ma'am, I know you thought this, but the data proves otherwise. And so you are telling that to the commander, or maybe one day as an 06, you are the commander using that data to make those decisions. Yeah, next slide. All right, so how are we doing it? What are some tools that you guys are going to be doing? I have questions of like, hey, what type of programming language should I be using? Ideally, we just need you to understand some sort of programming language, whether that's going to be in Python, C++, VBA, and Excel. Those basic coding skills are going to help you as you use some of our tools available in the career fields. But we have a variety there. I personally use Envision on a daily basis. Other people I've worked with have used Tableau, RStudio. Python's going to be in Plotly. And we use some of these tools in our initial skills training, which we'll talk about later as well. And then what are some of those tools that you're going to be using, those skills that are going to equip you so that you're solving those problems we talked about in the previous slide? You're going to be doing some math, programming, statistics. You're going to be doing some modeling simulation. Wargaming is what we saw in the video. Modeling simulation is also what we saw in this video. A lot of it's going to be automation. And so maybe somebody's doing some manual processing. They're just crunching numbers, copying and pasting into Excel. And then you, the analyst, are going to be able to automate that process. So now something that took them a week to do before now takes them the click of a button. And then maybe instead of in Excel, now you're working in the cloud environment, so that all of the data is right there at their fingertips instead of them spending hours and hours just trying to do this manual process. So if you go to the next slide. All right, so who are we? We talked about this earlier when we introduced ourselves. So we are about 1/3 military, 2/3 civilian. So you see there about 600 military officers and about 1,200 civilian. So we really work all together, civilian, military, contractors as well. And then now what you're not going to see here is enlisted. That's not to say that we don't work with enlisted. It's really going to depend on the type of job you're doing. Here in the Pentagon, we're doing mostly staff, strategic type of work. And so we're working mostly with civilians and officers. But maybe as lieutenant, you're going to that ops base, you're going to that test base. And so you may be sitting with an enlisted member. And we do actually work with some enlisted on the intel side that do similar work to what we're doing. But because of the type of work that we're doing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, you're going to see that the great majority of us go to grad school to earn our master's degree. I think everyone in this room has earned their master's degree. And then Clarence is going on to earn his PhD. Good job, Clarence. And so we do value the PhDs as well, if that's something that you're interested in. But yeah, and then the thing I also like to talk about on this slide is that whether you stay in for 20 years, 15, 10, whatever that is, the idea is that we are providing you with those skills that you for sure will go on to use after the military. So while we want you to stay in as long as possible, there is a future for you, whether you want to go do sports analytics. I knew someone who did that after 20 years. I knew another person who went on to study self-driving cars. Another person went on to Google or Amazon. All different futures await for you. But the idea is that you use those skills not only in the military, but they are applicable to all different kinds of scenarios as well. So next slide. All right, so where are we located? Because we do not fly planes, we fly desks. We are mostly located CONUS, but there are overseas assignments. So we do have quite a few assignments in Germany supporting the conflict over in Europe. We have quite a few assignments in Hawaii as well, supporting the conflict in the Pacific, and the occasional positions elsewhere. But most of the assignments are going to be CONUS, and you're seeing some of those dark blue states there, Colorado, Texas, Ohio, Virginia, and Florida. Colorado, we do have NORTHCON there, but we also have the Air Force Academy. If you want to go teach, I've taught there by myself. But if you end up in Texas, that's going to be the personnel manpower. Personnel manpower is people and money, and well, that means numbers. And so we are involved there. Florida is going to be the test bases, so understanding how you're going to model and analyze the different test flights that are going on. So they're testing the different airplanes. And so that's going to be down in Florida. Virginia, that's where we're all here right now. We're in Virginia, that's the Pentagon. And then we also have ACC, Air Combat Command, down at Langley, which is in Virginia as well. And then Ohio, we have AFIT, which is our Air Force Institute of Technology. That's our Air Force Graduate School, if you want to go teach there. But there's also a couple other centers and MAJCOMs up there. Let's go to the next slide. All right, deployments and exercises. If you were really interested in, you want that operational experience, we have some short-term exercises, which are about 3 weeks long. Full deployments are going to be, as you see, 180 days. So that's going to be 6 months. But if you're like, ooh, I just really want to see what is the working with intel, weather, cyber, what does that look like? And so we just had a lieutenant who came back from Korea, enjoying the exercise there. When I asked him how it went, he gave me 2 thumbs up, big grin. He loved it. So getting that operational experience overseas is really great. And then for deployments, if you're like, ooh, I really want to go deploy, I want to get that overseas experience. We've got quite a few assignments there, or deployment options. You're seeing 5 different overseas locations. However, if you have a family, the stable life is really more for you. Shaw Air Force Base down in South Carolina is an option as well. So whether you go overseas or you're stateside, all different things that fit your interest. Yeah. All right, initial skills training. So when everyone commissions as a 15 Alpha officer, you'll arrive at your duty station, your operational assignment, And then within the first few months, you will then go to Keesler Air Force Base to do your initial skills training. So while you are coming on board with a bachelor's of science in some sort of STEM fields, we want to make sure that you understand how to apply those technical skills to operations. And so we have a variety of different things that we're teaching you guys, whether it's in big data, cloud tools, artificial intelligence, modeling, simulation, design of experiments. I can go on and on. We are applying those skills to 8 different projects. For example, in the Pacific, in the Central area, in space, in ACC, Air Combat Command. So we apply them in the different examples so that in theory, when you go back to your unit, hopefully we have met some of the types of analyses that you're going to be facing there. We also teach you some of those qualitative skills, like how to fill out a performance report, which every single officer has to do regardless of AFSC, and you're going to have to do it every year. So we teach you how to kind of write those performance reports. We also teach you, hey, when a commander asks a question, they may not put it in the frame of reference that you as an analyst are used to. They may ask some arbitrary question, and you have to understand the intent behind the question and then transform that into a question that you can use numbers to answer. And so we're teaching that at our initial skills training. We give you an example where the commander asks something, and then you then have to say, well, this isn't an academic example. I'm not sure what to do. Well, that's exactly what you're going to face in your day-to-day life. You're not going to have a textbook example in an email or in a briefing. You have to kind of use the frame of reference at the time to be able to then go and solve and deliver the data and information to the commander. And then we've also got some pictures. We have a picture of the golf course on the bay. It's beautiful. We've been there ourselves. An example of kind of what the lodging location looks like. And then pictures of students who were actually there, just graduated in February. We've heard great things from them, not only from the students themselves who enjoyed it, but also from the commanders who had the students arrive back to their units. We have the Air Force Global Strike Command A9 director who said, it's hitting the mark. They're coming back with the skills exactly as we need them to. A couple of them went on to go support an exercise, and the lieutenant said, yeah, like the skills we learned at IST exactly helped us support the exercise. So we are definitely hearing great things from the students who are coming back from that. And next slide.
All right. Thank you, Major Arcanina, for walking through that. There is not a career path for a 15 Alpha. There are career fields that have a pretty well-defined career path. You're going to start in a communication squadron as a 17X officer, and then you're going to become a flight commander in a communication squadron, and then you're going to go to a staff, and then you're going to command a communication squadron, and so on. We don't have that. And yet, put up here on the screen for you a career path that an officer could follow. I don't know if there's any particular 15 Alpha who has followed this exact path. There probably isn't. But this gives you a little bit of a taste of what are the kinds of things at what different points in a career that you could do. So our notional officer here starts in test and evaluation. So maybe that's weapons related test, or maybe that's an existing aircraft that is constantly in development of its next block upgrade, or additional tactics, or maybe it's some future aircraft, a B-21 or a KC-46 still coming online that is more future focused. Then there's grad school. Every 15 Alpha, there is not a undereducated 15 Alpha. And the opportunity to go to grad school, at least for a master's degree, is a regular thing. Probably going after a first assignment, maybe going as a first assignment, possibly a master's combined with a PhD, maybe a master's and later a PhD. All of these are possibilities, but you will have the opportunity for graduate school. It won't be a requirement. If you want to to work on a master's degree, just night school, use Air Force tuition assistance, that's fine. But if you're interested in the in-residence master's opportunity, it will be there. Then we've got this notional officer becoming an instructor. There are lots of instructor opportunities for 15 alphas. Major Acanino taught math at the Air Force Academy. She also just talked about the schoolhouse at Keesler Air Force Base. So we've got 15 alphas who are instructing future 15 alphas or new 15 alphas in that initial skills training. There also are opportunities to be on the faculty at AFIT, the Air Force's graduate school. So, and we have 15 alphas who are at ROTC detachments. So lots of opportunities for different kinds of instructor duty. Then there's going to be a headquarters. If not by the 8-year point, at least by then. We have lots and lots of 15 alpha jobs at the Pentagon and Major Command and other headquarters positions. So in this case, it's the office in which Ms. Schatz, Major Acanino, and I work, the Air Force Office of Studies and Analysis on the Secretariat in the Pentagon. But it could be an A9 at a Major Command or a numbered Air Force. But probably is going to be working on the staff of a general officer. IDE, that's where the intermediate developmental education, where the Air Force pulls together majors from every AFSC to have a year graduate school experience of professional military education. That's competitive. The master's degree is going to be competitive to a certain extent, but if you meet the academic qualifications, you're going to have the opportunity to get a technical master's degree in operations research or data science or something similar. The top performing officers will get the chance for that 1-year professional military education experience, either at Air Command and Staff College in Montgomery, Alabama, or at one of the sister service schools or some other kind of an opportunity. And that is sought after, desired, competitive, and sets you up for future success. What's the future success that we've got in this career path? To be a squadron director of operations. This is not something that there has been a lot of opportunity for 15 alphas to this point. Not something that was available to me when I was at the 13-year point of my career, but we have directors of ops right now, and that is only going to grow as we have created are in the process of creating additional analytic squadrons. So there's an Air Combat Command Detachment 4 that will become a Ops Analysis Squadron. Global Strike Command is standing up a Ops Analysis Squadron. Air Education and Training Command has a Studies and Analysis Squadron. And all of these units have Director of Ops, which is a key leadership growth opportunity. Then maybe it's to a joint position. The joint staff here at the Pentagon is a great experience. I can speak to that myself. I did wargaming on the joint staff. Maybe it's at a combatant command. We've got lots of 15 alphas at STRATCOM. We've got some at CENTCOM, some at NORTHCOM. So that opportunity to broaden yourself after being around, well, both civilians, but blue uniforms, largely for that point in your career. It is fun and interesting and challenging to sit side by side, work day to day with sailors and soldiers and Marines in that joint environment. And then maybe it's squadron command. We have, as I mentioned, an increasing number of analytic squadrons. So you could lead other 15 alphas and civilians and enlisted from relevant career fields to do data science and operations analysis. Or maybe it's to command a squadron in another area. We have had a number of 15 Alphas successfully command force support squadrons, even though those are generally personnelists that lead those. We've got a 15 Alpha right now who is commanding a weather squadron, with all reports are an enormous amount of success. And then maybe the career culminates after getting promoted to colonel as that Major Command Director of Analysis, the A9, which is somewhat of a capstone kind of position. There are not any, we've got the squadrons. What we don't have is wings that are analytic wings. Maybe by the time 2 decades from now, I won't try and make a forecast about whether wing command is the kind of opportunity for a 15 Alpha, but it could be. And we've got 3 15 Alpha colonels who are deputy wing commanders or for air base wings. So the deputy for running base operations. So there are leadership opportunities in this career field in a way that there weren't as many 5 or 10 or 20 years ago. Next. Academic majors. The Air Force Officer Classification Directory by every AFSC specifies what the qualifications are from an undergraduate program to qualify for that major, or qualify for that Air Force specialty. There are many Air Force specialties that'll take any bachelor's degree. This is not one of them. So what you see total on this slide is all of the majors that make you qualified to be a 15 Alpha. We definitely have preferences. Those tier 1 degrees, I think 2/3 of our new lieutenants will, or at least 2/3, certainly can be more than that. At least 2/3 will have one of those degrees. Operations research and data science, or industrial engineering is very similar, if not just a renaming of operations research. Those are the most naturally aligning or identified with the career field. But computational science, certainly just pure mathematics or some flavor of statistics, all great academic backgrounds for 15 Alpha. But speaking as a career field manager, I wouldn't want us to be entirely from those tier 1 degrees. Those tier 2 and tier 3 degrees are there for a reason. Operations research, which traces its roots to World War II, was built on the idea of being multidisciplinary. And so this is a career field that has and wants to continue to have economists and engineers and physicists and other academic backgrounds. So if your bachelor's is in one of these fields, we want to talk and we're potentially interested in you and your skills and your academic interest and background is relevant to this. For graduate programs, those top 2 in the tier 1 are your most likely. Not that is the only opportunity for a graduate degree, but probably or most 15 Alphas will get an operations research master's or a data science master's from the Air Force Institute of Technology. And Captain Williams, it's artificial intelligence, right? That you're going off to get the PhD in?
It's actually data science.
It's data science. Okay. So Captain Williams going to this summer to the University of Virginia to get the PhD in data science. And what's your master's?
Operations research.
In operations research. Yeah. Just to give you my own academic background, I had an operations research and economics bachelor's from the Air Force Academy, and then I have an operations research master's from the Air Force Institute of Technology. I also have a qualitative analysis degree, not on this list, a public policy master's degree from the University of Maryland. And yeah, this is pretty quantitative. This is pretty mathy on here, but a successful, effective 15 Alpha also needs to be able to speak and write and listen and read, and all of those qualitative, softer skills. And partly that's because the data is not always, maybe ever, going to be as quantitative and clean and mathematical as we would like it to be. So yeah, the majors required are technical, but the qualitative skills are important and desired as well. Next. All right, here's some contact info. Happy to have anybody reach out if you want to ask questions. You can really ask them of anyone on this team. You've got, again, myself, Colonel Woodward, here talking, as well as Ms. Schutz and Major Acanino. And this is the rest of our team, including the 2 assignments officers in San Antonio, joined by San Antonio, that do the annual process of matching officers to vacant positions as we build that career path for every officer and fill positions along the way.
Sorry, if I may
Yes.
add something here. The thing I like to let cadets know is these types of people are the types of people that you should be contacting regardless of your AFSC. You should always be in contact with your career field management team, because they're going to be the ones, kind of like what we're doing now, that are saying, oh, we look at your history, we think you should be going to these assignments next to make sure you're becoming a well-rounded officer. And then the assignments team is going to be really huge, because every single time you're coming up to move, you're vulnerable to move, you're creating that dream sheet. Those people are going to be able to tell you where those positions are that you're interested in. Or if you say, hey, you know, I've got some family I've got a family situation, or, you know, for stability reasons, I really want to stay in DC, or I really want some MAGCOM experience. Where are those positions available? The assignments team is going to be able to point you in that direction. So make sure that you are in contact with your assignments team, with your career field management team, as soon as you commission. If not before you commission, even as a cadet, once you find out your AFSC, make sure you're in contact with them.
Tip. Next. All right. I just want to wrap up before taking your questions with talking about the 3 of us as people, not just as bodies inside of Air Force uniforms. So this will give you, I talked you through a notional timeline of a career. These next 3 slides will give you actual examples of, what really have we done. So my career, not true of every 15 Alpha, but true a lot that it's a mile wide and an inch deep. I've gotten to touch a lot of different things without necessarily going back to doing any of the same thing more than once. So I started with the AWACS E3 at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma, doing day-to-day data management, data analysis of the operations of that aircraft. We deployed to Turkey and Saudi Arabia and the Caribbean, and fixed airplanes and trained crews, and I got to do just be involved in all the data with that particular aircraft. I did operational assessment, which is the more qualitative side of what ops analysts do at the Air Operations Center in Korea. So that's helping the commander, in the case of conflict there, understand what's going well and what's not going well in a combat operation. Test. We've talked about test and evaluation is something that lots of 15 Alphas touch, especially early in their career. I did it with the B-2 stealth bomber at Whiteman Air Force Base. An opportunity outside of the 15 Alpha career field, and there are lots of these. What did I happen to do? A political military affairs strategist. That's working with partners and allies. In my case, it was with the Pakistanis. So I got to go to Embassy Islamabad, maybe the liaison officer with their military, in enabling their and coordinating their military officers to attend American military schools. Phenomenal experience. I mentioned Joint Staff, did wargaming there. Again, that's more on the qualitative side, facilitating senior leaders to think through, make the hard decisions in a pretend environment, so that if a crisis should occur, they've had a chance to wrestle with hard questions. I got to command a squadron, a manpower squadron. Did I have any experience in manpower, in figuring out how many people should be in a civil engineering squadron or a dental clinic? No, I didn't. But I got to lead that team of experts that did figure out those kinds of things. So that's what it's a very quantitative kind of an area, and deeply rewarding to do that leadership of a squadron of about 55 people. And I've been multiple times at the Pentagon, including now as the career field manager in the Studies and Analysis Office in the Pentagon. I mentioned my bachelor's, operations research and econ, the qualitative public policy degree at Maryland, and I've also had the chance to do in residence professional military education a couple of times at Air Command and Staff College and Air War College. I got a beautiful wife, a couple of girls. One of them is on the picture on the right. She's a lot bigger than that. I think she was 2.5 at the time in that picture, and she's 8 years old now. But we still, we had a lot of fun running together when she was in a running stroller, and now she'll ride her bike while I run. I'm a little bit older. I'm from Seattle. Go Mariners! Baseball season's about to start. I like to read. I like to run. I'm a little bit of a Civil War history buff. So that's a little bit of an example career. Not that it would have to be one, but it puts a little specifics on it, and also kind of who I am as a guy, not just as an Air Force colonel. Major Acanino, I'll let you run through the same thing.
Yep. So as Colonel Woodward indicated, we all have very unique careers. None of us are the same. So I have not as much operations experience. So I was at the NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office, doing some work for the intelligence community. So I would say I spent essentially 4 years in the space community doing software acquisitions and space policy. So I was part of that. As they were creating the Space Force, I was part of the involvement to create some of that policy. So that was really, really cool to be part of the beginning of the Space Force. And then, of course, my spouse, he is actually Space Force. So he started out Air Force. We graduated together, went into the Air Force. And then after the Space Force stood up, he had only had space experience. And so he naturally went over there. He's an engineer for the Space Force now. I mentioned this earlier, and Colonel Wood mentioned this. I've taught at the Air Force Academy. I've also done executive officer experience, which means that I worked in a front office reviewing a lot of different records, supporting the commander and the vice commander, or supporting the department head. I've done a couple executive officer jobs. Essentially, I had the ear and had the mentorship of the commander, is what the executive officer is doing. You control their schedule, you take their phone calls, you review their inbox, their emails, but you are the analogy I use, you are the Robin to the Batman. Is what I would tell people. And then now I'm doing my air staff tour, supporting Colonel Woodward in the career field management team. For stability reasons and for just coincidence in my career, I've not deployed yet. I'm about to reach 10 years of my career. I've not deployed. You may go your entire career not deploy. You may go your entire career, maybe deploy once. Colonel Woodward, how many times have you deployed?
And it depends on how you count, which is a very 15 alpha sort of answer. Okay? Korea is not a deployment, but it is an unaccompanied assignment. Pakistan, I was there mostly with deployed personnel, although technically it wasn't a deployment for me. It was another unaccompanied assignment. I've deployed to Saudi Arabia as a lieutenant for Operation Southern Watch, and to Afghanistan for the very end of that operation as a lieutenant colonel. Okay. So 2 quasi deployments, 1 year long each, and then 2 shorter ones that actually meet officially the deployment definition.
Thank you, sir. So definitely a lot more times than I have deployed, but I am likely to deploy for the first time this fall. I just knew 10 years in, haven't deployed yet. I will probably get voluntold if I don't volunteer myself. So I raised my hand and said, hey, I want to much more. I volunteered to go to Shaw, so we'll see if I get to go to Shaw because at least it's stateside, and then maybe my family on a long weekend can come down and visit me is the idea. So that's why I opted for that. I am a very mathy person. All of my degrees have been in math, so I'm one of those people, and I taught math at the Air Force Academy. But as you can see, I have done some math and some non-math in my career. I was born in Guam. That's where the last name comes from. I'm like 4 different ethnicities, but I'm a Navy brat, 4th generation military. Sometimes they say, was I really born to be in the military, or was I raised to be in the military? Who knows? My spouse, born and raised in Okinawa, stepped foot in the United States a week before basic training. So we were from the islands, but we met in college and married after college. And we have a 2-year-old now. You see her in the flight suit. We like to say she's a budding military officer because she orders us around, tells me where to sit, tells me we're going to eat together, and tells me what to do. I think that's very 2-year-old-ish, but we like to joke. She's going to be an officer one day. Who knows? And then our dog, we've had her since we commissioned. So 9 years old, she's getting a little swell of gray hair on her snout there. My hobbies have transitioned to really taking care of my kid, but I love it. I wouldn't trade for anything else. Do a bit of baking, and then some photography as well to document my child's life. Yeah, over to Clarence.
All right, so I just realized from looking at the previous slides that my career early on mirrors that typical or notional career progression. So it's interesting. So starting out, I commissioned in 2016, and I got the opportunity to go to squadron. So the 59th Testing Evaluation Squadron, OLB. It's at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. What I did there was did operational test evaluation of the HC-130J and the EC-130H. So a little bit of combat search and rescue and electronic attack. There I got the opportunity to sit in the back of a C-130J and film airdrops while going high speed. It's pretty fun. And I got to go TDY a lot, like to Alaska and Southern California in the middle of nowhere. And then even then for the electronic attack piece, I got plenty of opportunities of just sitting on the test range, observing the effects of being jammed. So plenty of long nights at 2 a.m. being surrounded by tarantulas and bats, but it's pretty fun. Then after the squadron, I got to go to AFID for 2 years for the master's in OR, and then now here at Air Force Futures 857, doing capability development, which is really articulating the requirements, acquisition, and resources needed to deliver future capability to warfighter. It's a pretty abstract topic that goes beyond the scope of this short brief, but I'll leave it at that. So from an education standpoint, I do like math, like others in this room. Got my bachelor's in mathematics from Augusta University in Augusta, Georgia. So got to at least be close to the master's. Never made it through the gate, but it's always fun being down there for spring break for that. And my minor was computer science, which actually helps a lot, being able to do theoretical mathematics, understand proofs, and be able to code somewhat. It really helps out in this assignment now. And then at AFID, got to do operations research, to really learn more about what the career field does. Looking at the next bullet, a wife, she's a civilian, she works in the private sector. I have 2 daughters, 14 and 6. You can see the picture of them there. That's from Arizona. So while in Arizona, my house is right behind a lake. So it's pretty great for Christmas to be able to go out and barbecue and have nice photos while others are probably freezing. But I'm also an Army brat. My dad retired as a first sergeant in the Army. I actually have a long line of history of service in my family. My wife served in the Army. My brother served in the Army, and my sister served in the Air Force too as an ABM. She's the one that convinced me, said, hey, you should go Air Force. The Army doesn't have a good quality of life compared to the Air Force, and I agree. But I did commission through OTS, and prior to commission, I did work for software engineer for about 2 years. So that computer science degree helped me actually get a job, and being able to code professionally was pretty great to bring that skills to what I do now. Favorite football team is the Baltimore Ravens. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. Last season was very emotional for me, and hopefully next season will do better. And getting away from the computer screen, some of my hobbies, of course, listening to music, making music, just reabsorbing music. It gives me an opportunity to step away from the computer screen, rest my eyes, since I'm going to be in school again soon. So I'll be spending plenty of time just staring at the screen or in the books. So being able to step back and do that is pretty great. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you see two pictures of some of my guitars. I have probably 10, the basement full. The joke is like how many guitars you need. It's the current amount you have plus one. And then lastly, I like video games too. My backlog is growing. So I really don't have time, but I'll buy something and never play it, but it just goes in the backlog. Maybe someday I'll get some time. All right.
Do you ever get the emails from Steam
I do.
that say like, something
Sale.
on your wish list is for
It's
sale?
for sale, and I buy it, and it just goes to the
It goes
long
to
queue of
backlog.
30 things. But
So that's us a little bit professionally and personally, and a little bit about the career field. Kevin Lewis, can you turn the camera back on? We would be happy to take your questions. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. So
yes.
Camera's back on.
who's
Yeah, could someone
who's got a
confirm
concern?
if they can see us? I don't know.
Good
Oh.
afternoon. My name is Cadet Fourth Class Heselton. First off, I want to thank you all for hosting this town hall. It's been very informative. Second of all, I do have two questions I've been meaning to ask you. The first being, what kind of advice would you give towards those who are interested in this career field and would like to be a part of it, aside from having a particular degree? In that sense, what other skills are you looking for? What other qualifications are you looking for in order to be part of this career field? And the second being, what is your most memorable moment from your career?
I would say critical thinking and emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I mean, should say critical thinking, emotional intelligence. I think those are broadly important skills for a military officer in general. But they, yes, probably more relevant for a 15 Alpha than most.
Can I touch on the sorting piece?
Go for it, yeah.
All right. The thing that I like to tell people, so if you're a senior, obviously, your skills will kind of get you there. You're already going to be selected as a 15 Alpha. If you're a junior or lower, make sure if your multivariable calculus done, you've got some skills in programming. We touched on that a little bit earlier. And then try to keep your GPA up, only because, as we've emphasized, you'll probably go to get your master's degree or even one day get your PhD. And so having that academic, those academic skills, the study skills are really important. The critical thinking piece is huge. Being able to ask those questions not only helps you in the professional life, but helps you in the academic world as well. Saying, hey, I didn't understand this. Or saying, I don't know if the author considered this. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions, annotate in your book, highlight. I have a whole bookshelf full of my math books from grad school and undergrad. And then I think the memorable
moment. Well, I will try and make my memorable moment, or I will offer a memorable moment that is a little bit 15 Alpha related. So I mentioned that I was deployed 3 years ago for the very end of our Afghanistan operation. That wasn't, I didn't know when I deployed that it was going to be the very end, but I found myself in Kabul, Afghanistan at the U.S. Embassy on July 29th, 2021. And over the next 2 weeks on a daily basis, watched the map as Taliban took over regional capital, followed by provincial capital, followed by regional capital. And on August 14th, they rolled into town, and I joined hundreds of my fellow American diplomats and soldiers getting on a helicopter that flew across town to the airport. And then we spent 2 weeks at the airport processing evacuees, Afghans and other nationalities before flying out myself. And those 2 weeks, especially at the airport, were surreal. That was not an experience that I had had previous in my life or in my military career. And my job for those couple of weeks, I was a staff officer for the 2-star in charge of the operation, and sort of preparing him on a daily basis to talk first to the Central Command commander in Tampa, Florida, and then the Secretary of Defense at the Pentagon, and then often the president or the National Security Advisor at the White House. Though most days it was that series of 3 meetings. Just making sure he had the relevant facts and data in front of him. And I was amazed. I was appalled. But I was curious or interested in how clunky our data management was. This is an operation that was at a single location, and it was tense, but it wasn't a shooting fight until there was the tragic bombing at Abbey Gate about a week and a half into it. But for the most part, it was a tense situation without people shooting at each other at a single location with a very clear objective: get as many civilians onto C-17s and out of here as possible.
We have a couple minutes left.
Yeah. And yet, we couldn't keep track of how many people were on each airplane. It was things like, in order to move data from one building to the next, we had to hit print on a network that was an internal network and walk it across the street. I would take photos with my phone of whiteboards that had data or numbers scribbled on it, and then take it back to my desk and type it in. Using Google Sheets, keep track of inbound and outbound aircraft rather than some really official program. So it really struck me as much as we are an impressive, the world's most impressive military at command and control, and we have an entire career field here that is focused on interpreting, analyzing, communicating data. There's still a lot that we don't do well, so as I am close to retirement, I guess I'll offer that to your challenge. I hope we don't have another Kabul-like evacuation, but if you can become a 15 Alpha, I hope that your experience in a crisis situation is actually a less clunky, more smooth data opportunity to use data and interpret it for good decision making.
If I may add something to close. So we don't really have time for another question, unfortunately. But feel free to go back through the recording, look for our contact information. It's in there. If you have a question for Ms. Schutz or for Captain Clarence Williams, you can email me. My email is in the slideshow, and then I can connect you with them as well. But feel free to ask questions, reach out. My job is to help with recruiting into sessions, so I am here for you. The curriculum management here is to support you as well.
And I think are we going to lose the conference room?
Sir, there is no one after us.
Yeah. So we can keep taking questions if you got them, at least for a few minutes.
I don't know anything after this. So.
Anybody else? Nicole, those are good questions. Arpita?
Hello, I'm Cadet 4th Class Jen, and I have one question. So you mentioned that we should have a background in multivariable calculus and coding. Would you like that background to be through our degree or like something official, or can it be like self-studying multivariable calculus and learning coding by yourself?
It should be on your transcript. So if you do it as an elective, that's fine. Make sure you have one of the tier 1, 2, 3 degrees that we showed earlier. And then on your transcript, if for some reason your primary major didn't offer multivariable calculus or programming, make sure you're doing that as an elective on the side.
And we have statistics as well.
Yes, statistics, yeah. I think that was one of the degrees.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yep.
Kevin?
Hello, I'm Cadet 4th Class Zane. I want to ask, like, how much machine learning do you guys like actually do?
It's going to vary a lot from position to position. Personally, not very much, but there are. I bet when Captain Williams finishes his PhD and goes to the National Reconnaissance Office, there's going to be a lot of it. So I think that is something. Very much the case that today it's going to vary job by job. Is there any job that's going to have less machine learning 5 years from now than today? Probably not. Machine learning is a growth industry for sure. But I would say it's not. Well, let me give you a little bit of philosophy on operations research versus data science. Now, as both of those are, and 15 Alpha officers are both of those things, or could be asked to be both of those things, to be a data scientist or to be an operations researcher. I think this is an oversimplification, but there's some truth to the idea that operations research starts with questions and then figures out what's the relevant data to answer those questions. Data science starts with data and tries to figure out what are the right questions to ask of that data to understand it. So I would say you could expect as a 15 Alpha officer at different parts of your career, heck, maybe from week to week in a job, to face both of those challenges. Here is a bunch of data. What does it mean? And that sends you to your data science toolkit. And here is a nebulous, poorly defined problem. Frame it well and figure out what data either already exists or doesn't exist and needs to be created or collected in order to answer it. Machine learning, when there is no data, is not a thing. That's human learning. Well, if the data doesn't exist. So, is machine learning important? Absolutely, but it is not the only thing. Does that help?
Definitely, thank you.
Sure enough, it's a good question, and I think that data science and operations research is maybe not something that we hit on a lot as we were talking, but I think that's pretty important. A 15 Alpha officer does or will do both of those things. Anybody else? We appreciate your time and interest for sure.
Questions on joint spouse, if you have a civilian spouse, if raising kids, job stability, exciting stories, we are here.
If I could, I would love to ask one more question.
Go for it.
Earlier in your presentation, you talked about the strategic side of this career field. Could you go more in depth about that and specifically how someone interested in the career could prepare for that or take classes that would help prepare them for that?
I think that's when I was talking about what we do at the Pentagon.
Yeah, so the strategic side, if you will, or at least part of it, is about the long-term future. We can think about strategy as the geopolitics of today. What is the U.S. strategy? What should the U.S. strategy be with respect to its ally Israel in order to bring peace before too much more violence happens in Gaza, right? That is a strategy question. But when we're talking about the kinds of strategic things that a 15 Alpha is tasked with or could find themselves in, it's about what is the Air Force that we should have in 5, 10, or 25 years from now. Captain Williams works in the office called Air Force Futures. Those of us who are in Air Force Studies and Analysis, most of the questions that we are wrestling with are what are the investments that the Air Force should make today, the next few years, in order to have the Air Force, the Space Force that the nation needs 10 years, 15 years from now. And that's those big questions about, hey, if we can buy X number of B-21s or Y number of F-35s, but not X plus Y, which would be more valuable? That's a strategic question about the long-term future.
If I may add,
Yes, ma'am.
a couple interesting classes you could take in undergrad. It might be any classes in military strategic study, some political science ones, because sometimes those soft sciences influence the strategic perspective, because at the high level, politics, what do they say? Is it like culture eats strategy for breakfast or something like that? Anyways, so some of those softer skills are really important. I think so game theory, I've heard some people really appreciate game theory because you're understanding all the different moving parts. I've never taken a game theory class, but have enjoyed many games. I'm sure we've all played board games or computer games at some point. Before I had a kid, I was definitely an avid gamer. Now my child, I play games with my child, mental games, and actual games as well. So those are things. And then something I like to think about the strategic piece is strategy can be a really big problem. But as an analyst, we have to be able to understand how to break it down into smaller parts. And I think we, as analysts, do a really good job of that because problem sets, like math problems, statistics problems, programming problems, oftentimes are a big problem. And then you say, oh, if I use an if-then statement or here, or I'm really just looking for this one equation. I literally used a math equation earlier this week to solve a strategic problem. And so being able to break a big problem down into smaller parts and understand those individual parts. And that's not just in a mathematical sense or a programming sense, that's also in a people sense. So understanding that the DoD, because some people are like, well, what is the military? What is the Department of Defense? Well, it's one giant organization, one giant community broken down individual parts. So you have to understand the individual parts, the doctrine piece of it, which we teach at initial skills training. But the people part of it is working with those other offices. And so it's not just you and your own individual thing. It is you are one part of the bigger whole. And you have to understand how your piece touches with the other parts. You are one piece of the puzzle, and your puzzle piece touches other puzzle pieces as well.
I'll have something too. So if you don't take any of those classes in undergrad, don't be discouraged. So at the 4-year mark, you'll go to PME, Professional Military Education, which is Squadron Officer School for captains. There you'll learn about doctrine and mission command and commander's intent. So there you'll really learn more about that then at that 4 to 7 year mark.
Yep. And at the 04.
And at the 04.
04 one.
Yeah.
And the 05 one. It just builds on itself. But in undergrad, just being able to think at that level is huge, and finding opportunities to take classes that do some of that theory really helps a lot.
Right, being able to break down problems, like the question that Colonel Woodward asked, like in 5, 10, 15 years from now, what does Air Force that we need? That's a very nebulous and hard question to answer. So you have to be able to break that down. So when you say that, what is the Air Force trying to do at that time, and really continue to break that down, which is a skill set that's good to have, regardless of your career field. Yeah. And then going back to the machine learning question, if you could bring machine learning skills, like some of that information to answer that question may exist in unstructured data somewhere. If you could somehow harvest that and put that in a structured form so that you can enable the training of your machine learning algorithms, that would be very, very huge and a very good skill to have. So there's always opportunities, if you're expert in anything, to really transform the role that you're in into, meld it to your particular expertise. So I would say that, yeah, machine learning, yeah, I like it a lot, but we'll stop there. That's good.
Anybody else?
I have a quick one. This is Cadet Gustafson here, University of Memphis. Can you guys hear me?
Go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
So mine's a very simple question. So I see in tier 3 degrees, management science. I'm a business management major. Do you guys know if that's the same thing?
It's on the margins.
Okay.
I would say that if you've got 3 semesters of calculus, that probably puts you on one side of that border. If you've taken a business statistics class, probably you haven't. So it's
Getting that.
you're lean into the math and statistics side of that is what I would encourage, and you would qualify.
Plus the programming hygiene. Yeah.
Right. That basically answers my question. Then I'm in my junior year, putting in my job selections now, and was just seeing how the time frame works if I want to, switch degrees, and I'm also interested in applying to AFIT. So, the second part to that question is it possible to get selected for AFIT straight after commissioning and then getting changed to 15 Alpha if I wasn't originally selected for 15 Alpha?
It
Depends on the career field.
Yeah, it kind of depends.
Yeah.
Now's where you've got maximum flexibility. There's no doubt about that. That doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities to cross flow between career fields, but it's less common than you think it is probably the right way to put it. And what Air Force specialty you get matched with over the next 6 months or whatever that exact timeline is, that's pretty key. There are opportunities, and actually over the last few years, we have sent a significant number of lieutenants to AFIT to get their master's degree as a first assignment. We're going to do less of that. Not that it's necessarily going to go to zero, but it's going to be much more likely that officers have a job, then go to AFIT and get the graduate degree. So that's what I would say to most likely expect. But there is the opportunity potentially to go to graduate school right away after commissioning.
If I may touch on it, what I tell cadets is, so yes, we do sometimes send people direct to grad school. The two big programs you're looking at is going to be a faculty pipeline one, where the Air Force Academy is going to sponsor your degree to go teach. It's depending on what AFC you're going to go into is going to be the one, it's going to depend on what they sponsor you for. So if you go 15 Alpha, they're probably going to sponsor a math degree. That's what I did. I did the graduate studies program. And so I had to follow on to the academy after an operational assignment at the interim. Operation Acquisitions. And then the other big one is going to be an NRO scholarship. And that's what Captain Williams is doing, is he's doing the PhD NRO scholarship, but they also offer direct out of commissioning NRO scholarships where the NRO sponsors your master's degree, and then you have a follow-on to the NRO. That's actually why I went to the NRO, is because my spouse had the NRO scholarship. So he was sponsored by the NRO to get his master's degree. He immediately had a follow-on. I followed him. And so I actually had to interview, compete, send my resume to get to the NRO because it's a green door assignment. It's not usually on the assignments list. You have to apply for it outside of the assignment process. So those are the two big ones. But as a cadet in your junior year, this is the time, the spring is coming up in the next couple months. You should be looking for the AAD speed guide. So I wrote that down, AAD, Advanced Academic Degree. If you have a CAC, you should be able to access my FSS. Again, write that down, my FSS, spelled MY as in my, me, my FSS, Force Support Squadron. So my FSS. And then in there, easy, there's a search bar that's at the top. You type in AAD. Please be careful because there is the U.S. Air Force and a U.S. Space Force AAD. So please select the Air Force one. And then in that page, there is a cadet only section. And so that is for people who are applying direct first assignment, AFID assignments. And so that's going to direct you to the faculty pipeline and the NRO scholarships. But there are the occasional AFSCs that do offer direct to AFID out of commissioning. And as Colonel Woodward indicated, we were one of those. And now we really want people to get some of that operational experience the first couple of years in their career so that they go on to get their master's degree and they've seen some really tough problem in the operational assignment. And then now they go and figure out how to solve it because they can use their thesis to solve that tough problem. And I've definitely seen people who did it at the PhD level as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. We're here for you guys. Anything you need.
All right, well, don't, if another question comes up, send us a note and we are happy to talk more, answer a particular question. And again, as I said at the beginning, enable you to have the information to identify where your passions are, what would be of maximal interest. And we'd love to have you as a 15 alpha, but we don't want, we want people to be 15 alphas who want to be 15 alphas. So I don't want to twist your arm too hard. I want you to want it if it's right for you.
Yeah. And don't be a stranger. Even if you have a non-15 alpha question related, just officer related, military related, civilian related, Ms. Schutz is a great person for that. Feel free to ask. I will say that I've had a lot of mentors in my career, and not all of them have been 15 alpha. Some of them have just been, hey, I got a leadership question. Some of them have been, hey, I have a joint spouse question. Hey, I have a child now. Like, what do you guys recommend? Any parent can answer the child questions, but military in particular can answer the, I'm PCSing, what do I do now? I have a kid. Hey, I've joined spouse. How do the assignments processes work? Hey, I have a civilian spouse. What does that look like, right? So we can answer a lot of those questions. And so what I encourage you guys to do is when you commission as lieutenants, or even before you commission, feel free to go talk to any active duty, civilian, contractor, enlisted, you name it, they're gonna have words of wisdom for you. So don't be shy about asking those questions, because that's going to be how you succeed, and that's going to be how you navigate your career. We did not get this far in any of our careers by just being a fly on the wall. We have been active participants in the military or in the DoD on the civilian side to get this far.
Mr. McDonald, thanks for setting this up, for sure.
Of course. Thank you for being here and being so interactive with all of the folks here and sharing your own experiences. We appreciate it.
Cool.
Hope you all have a great day.
All right,
Thanks for your
take
time.
care. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Happy Easter.
Thank you.
Spring break. Spring break, yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
gentlemen.
good
See you
luck.
later.
Have a great day.